so what we were just going over, right, that's the typical two-step equation. You add or subtract first, you multiply or divide second. But now here's the thing. When it looks like this instead, it's a little bit different. Let's say I give you x minus 7 all over 3 equals negative 12, okay? You have to be careful when they give you that big division bar. So this division bar here should be like a warning to you. Don't do the same thing we did before, okay? Before we would have said add 7 and then multiply by 3, right? But when you have this big division bar, remember what we said before? The division bar kind of acts like parentheses, and we want our parentheses to be the last thing we're doing because we're doing PEMDAS backwards, right? So if we're thinking PEMDAS backwards, this is so hard for me to write backwards for some reason. So if we're doing PEMDAS backwards, we are going to add and subtract first, multiply and divide second, and our parentheses come way at the end. Well, we said when we learned this stuff that this was like putting parentheses around the x minus 7, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take x minus 7 divided by 3 equals to negative 12, and we're going to solve for x by multiplying before we do the addition, okay? So when you have this division bar, just remember it's like we have parentheses, and we want to do that last because we're doing PEMDAS backwards, okay? So my first step here would be to multiply by 3. Why would I multiply by 3? To get rid of it, because right now we're dividing by 3, right? So you're doing the opposite. So if we're dividing by 3 now, we want to multiply by 3. Multiply by 3. So these cancel. We're left with x minus 7 equals, and then negative 12 times 3 would be negative 36. Okay? What's your next step then? Add what? Add 7 to both sides. We want to isolate the x, so go plus 7 plus 7. So you get x equals, this is gone now, negative 36 plus 7 is a negative 29. Okay?
I don't see how it's different versus
2-2a, we added and subtracted first, and then we multiplied and divided, right? Now this one, we're multiplying first, and then we're doing the addition. So it kind of flips it, but only because that big division bar acts like parentheses, which is what our last thing would be if we're doing PEMDAS backwards. Let me show you another one. See if you can help me set this up. So if I have 6 equals x minus 2 over 4, okay? We're trying to isolate the x. What's the first thing we're going to do?
Multiply.
By what?
4.
Multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply by 4 and multiply by 4 because this is saying divided by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 6 times 4 is 24. So you have 24 equals x minus 2. Okay? What do you do next?
Add 2.
You add 2. So plus 2 here, plus 2 here. So you get 26 for your x value. How can you figure out if you have the right answer? Plug it back into the original. So if I take this and I plug it in here, it would be 26 minus 2 divided by 4 should equal 6. Well, 26 minus 2 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. So it checks out. So then we know 26 is the right answer. Okay? So a large part of what you're going to do today is problems that look like that, where you have to multiply first and then add or subtract. Okay? Any questions on those so far? Okay, then these next ones are, it's called deductive reasoning. It's basically saying why we're able to do what we're doing. And so they're going to say solve negative t plus 8 equals 3. And they're going to say justify your steps. Whenever you see justify, it means give the reason. Okay, give the reason for what you did. So here's how we're going to start. Negative t plus 8 equals 3. And we're going to give a reason for each thing. So our reason for the first one is it's the original equation. So there's not really a reason for it other than it's what we started with. Okay, that was our original equation. What would we do next to solve this? Subtract 8. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like in the book. They're going to say negative t plus 8 minus 8 equals 3 minus 8. Right? We're going to subtract by 8 on both sides. They do it horizontally. I always work vertically. It's doing the same thing. They're just showing you the step. So the reason for this is we subtracted, right? That's the subtraction property of equality. You can just say subtraction prop, okay? So we subtracted on both sides. So then the next step, they're going to say it's negative t equals negative 5. So if you look, how did I get from here to here? All I did was I did the subtraction that was written in. We call that simplify. So you just simplified. Okay. Can anyone tell me what the next step would be to solve this? Divide. So you can think of this as a negative 1t. So I would divide by negative 1. So it's a negative 1t divided by negative 1 equals a negative 5 minus a negative 1. So they're just showing you every step of the way, okay? So they're going to give you this left side, and you just have to fill in the right side. Which property did we do here? Division property, right? We divided on both sides, so that's the division property. Which means our last step then is to say t equals 5. And for that one, we just simplified again. So look at the pattern that you kind of see happen with these. You do a property of equality, and then you simplify. And then you do a property of equality, and then you simplify. That's a very common trend with these problems, okay? They show you the property, you simplify. They show you the property, you simplify. So I'm going to do one more of these, and you'll kind of see that pattern continue, and then we will be done, and I'll let you get going on it so that if you have questions, I can come help you with them. All right, so let's say this is our starting problem. X over 2 minus 3 equals 9. And our reason for that first one is always it's the original equation. Okay? Then your next one's going to look like this. X divided by 2 minus 3 plus 3 equals 9 plus 3. So to get from this first line to this second line, what did I do? I added. So that is the addition property. Okay, you would say addition property. Because I added to both sides. Okay, so then the next line they're going to give you is going to say x divided by 2 equals 12. What did I do there? That is simplify. I just did the addition from that addition property, right? I added this together, I added that together. So you just say simplify. Okay, my next step is going to look like this. X divided by 2 times 2 equals 12 times 2. Which property is that? Multiplication property. So you're going to say multiplication property. And then my next step is going to say x equals 24. What's that? Simplify. I did the multiplication, right? So that's simplify. And then once you're to that x equals some number, you're done. Questions on that? Okay, so when they say justify the steps, this is what they're looking for. They will give you the left side a lot of the time, and you just have to fill in the right side. Sometimes you might have to do both. Any questions on any of that? Okay, so tomorrow we're going to do a review worksheet for 2-1 and 2-2, and then we're going to take the quiz over it on the